Hello and welcome to the Weight Free Wellness Podcast. I'm Tara Bachland and this is episode number 35, Embarrassed to Exercise. I still remember it's been over 20 years, but I still remember what it feels like to be embarrassed to exercise, at least when I was a kid. It's happened since, which I'll get into a little bit later, but I first started when I was in elementary school, and I'm sure a number of you can relate. I lacked coordination, stamina, understanding of most games, and even strategies. And, it didn't really even bother me when I was chosen last to be on the team. I pretty much expected it at a certain point. I knew that I lacked the basic skills that were required to play any kind of game on the playground or even in gym class. Honestly, I just wanted to be left alone. On top of my lack of physical skills, being active actually hurt. The clothing rubbing against my body troubled my skin, which it even plagued, my skin actually plagued me during normal activities, but any extra activity caused pain from the repeated friction. So I just wanted to be still. I didn't want to participate in anything. So if that wasn't bad enough, the physical exertion made my stomach sick, my face turned red, I felt lightheaded and like I would vomit. If there was any moderate running, my lungs burned and my sides ached. So is anyone identifying with me here yet? Extremes in weather made it so much worse. I loved the sun, but it dried my skin out just from the heat. My face got redder and hotter more quickly, and my feet felt like anchors that I had to drag along. And the cold wasn't any better, really. It was equally painful. My already chilled and sensitive body recoiled in the cold. My skin felt even more parched in the cool, dry air. The open cracks in my skin, open wounds exposed to the piercing air or caught on layers of clothing, really didn't make it any better at all. Oh yeah, and I haven't mentioned yet, on top of it all, I was overweight. I was 40% heavier than my average classmate. That's quite a bit. And, I always thought at every recess and every physical education class, just let me sit out. Just let me be. And I'm sure many of you are identifying with a lot of this. And, if that's definitely not the worst of it. My biggest hurdle was embarrassment. So I was so acutely aware of my abnormalities that I couldn't do. Of what I couldn't do, I was ashamed to even try. So, obviously when you are on a playground or in a game and you're made to perform and you clearly can't perform even the most basic, it's just made even more aware on top of everything else of being overweight. And so I didn't even want to try. That would have made it worse to try, just to fail and be teased even more. It was easier just to sit it out. But there was a point that I realized that by not overcoming this hurdle, I was keeping myself from what was beyond just that one seemingly monumental hurdle. I could see beyond that. I knew that there was something beyond that, what seemed impossible. And if I had allowed myself, I would have gone my whole life not discovering how capable and healthy I've become, because I was worried about what others were thinking of me. I knew for years that my body needed to dance, to learn to move in a coordinated fashion and with expression. And I was embarrassed as a child because I thought that dance was too feminine. And I thought that I could get away with it in a way because I gained or perceived love or got favor from those that I loved by being a tomboy. So it justified me thinking that dance was too feminine. And I was embarrassed even as an adult because I thought I looked silly, stumbling around, or at least that's how I perceived myself dancing. So finally, at one point, I decided to get over the hurdle. I became sick and tired of being sick and tired. My ailments and thoughts and feelings about my body and my life continually pushed me into a corner. I felt less and less capable, worthy, and even desirous of anything fun and worthwhile. Something in my young self knew this was no way to live. I decided to change. I decided to make my biggest hurdle my greatest victory. A quick synopsis: almost 30 years later, I'm stronger and healthier than ever. I feel fit, capable, coordinated, and now I am chosen to be on teams. It feels really good to overcome such a multifaceted challenge, not just to be chosen by others or supported or encouraged or looked up to by others. It just feels good to have overcome what has been such a challenge in my life. And like I said, multifaceted. It came from in many areas: mentally, emotional, physical, health-wise. It feels good. And I'm here to share too that, life is kind of funny. There's one embarrassing thing after another. It seems that life gives us lesson upon lesson until we really get it. Recently, I found that I'm once again embarrassed about exercise. And like any good life lesson, the circumstances are much different. Now, much more self-confident, capable, and healthy, I'm not embarrassed of my body, but I notice being embarrassed about what or even how I train, particularly in martial arts. Martial arts started as a curiosity for me a number of years ago. I met my husband through this activity, and we've trained off and on throughout the years. It's been a form of exercise and self-study for me for about 16 years. It's true, there's much to learn just by metaphors in training martial arts, as we see in many movies. I've learned about boundaries, when and how to meet force, when to go around, flow, movement within movement, patience, muscle memory, overcoming frustration, learning with new training partners, and so much more. For me, this training is much more about how to work with and through a situation rather than to cause harm. But because I was training with people of similar interests, I didn't really notice the seeming contradiction brewing within me. Eventually I thought, well, what would my yoga friends think? And actually this thought came up. It's come up in softer ways at other times, but my husband had made this video of us training together, and we were practicing with practice daggers, or training daggers, which is a normal thing when you're training martial arts, and or at least the forms that we train. And honestly, initially when I first saw this type of training, it did surprise and shock me. But when I started to learn about the body mechanics and the different things and the metaphors that can come through this, I began to grow more comfortable. And so my husband had edited this video of us training, and it really surprised me to see myself wielding a practice dagger. Now, it's a practice dagger, it's not a real knife or anything, but it just created such a seeming contradiction in my mind. I think of myself as a very peace-oriented, loving person, and what was I doing this kind of training? And most of all, I thought, well, what would my yoga friends think, especially if I post a lot of my videos to social media, and what are they going to say? And I train regularly with training daggers and learn to disarm and return attacks. This does not fit my equally deep training in yoga. This does not abide by one of the tenets of yoga, which is nonviolence. So I don't train martial arts to learn to be violent. Actually, in a very metaphoric way, I have become much better at dealing with non-physical violence and even challenging life situations because of my martial arts training. You see a lot of metaphors on how to deal with force, or another person coming to attack you, even in the non-physical way. You decide, well, you're going to meet that force with a force, or you're going to go around it somehow. Because we all are faced with these challenges in life, and to me it's really a problem-solving exercise. Most of all, I've had to remember that each of us is on our own unique path, and I must continue to tune inward and find my own way without worry of what others think. And that's obviously easier said than done. So I've decided not to let this stop me from training. I mean, it was never really a question. It was more about, how public am I going to make this? But I think it's important as I unravel more in these podcasts about myself and overcoming, I think it is important to be honest. And this is me. And while it still surprises me to see myself in a video training with practice daggers, I know myself best. I know that I'm not training to harm, but to learn the dynamics of life, to train and understand my body, to become proficient in an area of life, which is the physical realm, that is most challenging to me. Like I mentioned before, not to be naturally coordinated and fit. So it has been a great accomplishment to actually be able to overcome and do these things. And most of all, I can see the metaphors in life, how to defend and react not only to the physical dagger, but the sharp tongue or piercing eyes of another person. These are very real things that we encounter. So I encourage you to face your seeming contradictions and challenges as well. Don't let the thoughts or assumed thoughts of other people stop you from moving your body the way you need to be healthy in body, mind, and spirit. I keep on training because of the many things I gain: quality time with my hubby, increased awareness, improved coordination and reflexes, strength and greater confidence. If I worried about what others thought, I'd be letting my assumed thoughts of what they might think of me prevent me from becoming who I want to be, more educated, capable, and to have greater perspective. Now I train martial arts, dance, do yoga, mountain bike, and I'm excited to do more. I'm so thrilled to live in my capable body. No longer will I let others' presumed thoughts dictate what I do or do not do. Whatever your reason for embarrassment, the reason that you're not exercising or moving your body, don't let it stop you. If you were to join any activity just for the fun of it, and as a result you gained in fitness, coordination, or self-awareness, what would you do? What would you do if no one were looking? What if money were no object? What are you curious about? What do you admire that others can do? Where can you start? How can you fulfill this for yourself? Don't worry about what others might think. You're living your life. It's your exercise. It's your body. And I really encourage you, turn your embarrassment into accomplishment. Feel great about yourself. Body, mind, spirit, all of the above. I encourage you to get out there and do it. Thank you for listening to this Weight Free Wellness podcast. Until next time.